All right, are you looking for a vaccine for your passive cash flow real estate business? If so, you've come to the right place. Dr. Moss is here. Oh boy, that's a little cheesy. I crossed the line, didn't I? Yeah. Let's get right into it. So what does a vaccine do? A vaccine introduces elements of a disease or an infection into your body, and your body's immune system generates immune responses to that vaccine. So for our real estate business, we're going to be looking at things that are going to be threatening our real estate business, how we can protect against them. The alternative to doing this would just be to get sick and deal with all these problems and these threats to your real estate company in the school of hard knocks and learn these lessons yourself. Why not take advice from people that have been there, people like myself, that have learned these lessons. And education is going to be your vaccine. Your mentor will be your vaccine. Knowledge is your vaccine. So I'm going to quickly talk about 6 different threats to your passive cash flow business. And the first one is exactly in the name, cash flow. The biggest threat to my last business back in 2004 when the economy collapsed, I had made $1 million, and because I didn't have that cash flow, it all fell apart in a matter of 6 months, and there was nothing really I could do about it. So cash flow, make sure you're in a position to have cash flow, have reserves set aside so you can float any kind of issues that come up for 6 months to a year, and that will be way more stable. That's probably the first thing that you need to know. The biggest threat to your cash flow business is cash flow. And I did this video here which talks about reserve for replacements and making sure that those unexpected repairs aren't unexpected and you are prepared for that monetarily. Okay, here's another threat to a passive cash flow real estate business that I have never had a problem with in the past, but this week it's come up twice. This is something what I call a twofer. Back when I was doing appraisals, I have appraised thousands of houses, and finally I come across a house that has a shooting range in the basement. And I'd never seen that before. And then within the same week, I get another appraisal on another house that has a shooting range as well. What the heck is that? How does that happen? There was some kind of anomaly, and this happened multiple times, and I call it a twofer. We would come home and be like, I had a twofer today. Here's what happened. Anyway, I have never had a house burn down. And this week, we've had 2 properties that have burnt down. And to make that even more crazy of a coincidence, both of those properties did not have insurance. We get insurance on all of our properties as soon as we close, but on these 2 properties that we bought, the insurance company said, hey, these properties are not ready to be insured, so they denied us the insurance policy, and we're stuck with these properties that burnt down with no insurance. So that can be a big threat to your business. Make sure you have your insurances, make sure they're in effect. We're not too worried about this because one of them was just a $10,000 RV. The other one was a property we were going to remodel anyway, and the walls seem to be in good condition and they're made out of stone, so we're going to be able to rebuild this property for not too much more money, but it's still frustrating, and we should have had insurance, and that would have paid for a lot of this and made this a lot sweeter of a deal, but alas. And I'm sure there's a principle out there that explains this, but I don't know what it is. And if you know what it is, comment down below and let me know. Also comment down below if you have ever had one of these twofers. And if this hasn't been discovered, well, I guess discovered a new principle, or if this is something that everybody knows about. Okay, a third threat to your passive cash flow real estate business is theft. And usually this happens with vacant properties, but we've also had it happen with our own internal contractors. We had a contractor that we were working with for a long time, had a great relationship, and we got a little too comfortable with him, and we started paying him in advance on a lot of properties we had going at a given time, and we ended up getting $75,000 in advances, and then his life fell apart, and there was nothing he could do about it, and he ended up defaulting on that $75,000, didn't make those repairs, so we had to bring in another contractor to finish those repairs, and that set us back about $75,000. We were super frustrated about it, but what can you do? You know, life happens, so you just want to be careful and be prepared. Don't get too comfortable with people. Always oversee your contractors and, you know, have things all properly documented, and in a situation where if something does happen, you're not out a lot of money at any given point in time. Fourth thing is kind of a combination, is to buy properties right and have multiple exit strategies. As you're building this passive cash flow business, you're going to have properties that don't go according to plans, and if you have multiple exit strategies and multiple ways you can make money if the intended plan doesn't work out, that's going to really help you be stable and have a effective and profitable passive cash flow company. Okay, and the last one we're going to talk about is one that we're struggling with right now as well, and this is bad tenants. This can be a real big thing, and this can be a big deal with the current COVID-19 pandemic and with people out of work. Some people aren't paying rent. Even though there's a lot of government assistance, some tenants just don't apply for that assistance and they try to stay in the property as long as they can. Ways that you can avoid getting bad tenants. When we screen our tenants, we look for 3 different things. We don't really care about credit score, but we look at evictions, because that tells us, is this person really concerned about paying their housing bill before other bills? And this does several things. If they've had an eviction before, they know how the process goes and they're more apt to know how to game the system, and is often a general indicator that that person's a little more stable than probably somebody who doesn't have evictions. The second thing we look for is criminal history. And the last thing we look for in our tenants, and probably the most important, is that they make 3 times the rent in income. And that's a little bit higher than the average. And we're okay with that because we just want to get some people that really can afford the property. Even if they have a setback in life, they can still afford the property. And we're willing to let it sit on the market for just a little bit longer to get that tenant that's going to be stable and not going to have problems. And if some minor things come up, they can handle some of those repairs, even though they may not be responsible for them. Other ways that you can avoid getting bad tenants is to look at the places that you're buying your rental properties in. If you're buying them in high crime areas and places that people just don't want to be, in the cheap areas, I guess you could say. For us, we try to buy properties under the $200,000 mark, and that's because of our rent ratio to our sales price ratio. We want to keep that in check. But in order to do that, you have 2 places that you can generally go in a metro area. That's either downtown or it's in the outskirt areas. And we've bought in both places, and we find that the properties in the downtown, even though they're the same price as the outskirt areas, they just don't seem to produce the type of tenants that we've enjoyed on the outskirt areas. Now remember, education is your vaccine to avoid these foreign threats to your passive cash flow real estate company. And good luck in building your company, and hopefully this was helpful. And please share this with anybody that it might help, and we'll see you on the next video.